9:20 a.m. July 15, 1975. Two spacecraft sit atop their respective rockets, ready to launch into space. The American spacecraft, named Apollo, is perched on Launch Complex 39B, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. 6,300 miles away, in Kazakhstan, the Soviet spacecraft Soyuz is also situated on its launch pad. On board the Apollo spacecraft is a crew of 3, while the Soyuz spacecraft carries 2 cosmonauts. As the countdown reaches its final seconds, tensions are high on the ground and in space. But as the rockets blast off into the sky, history is about to be made. This is the story of the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project. In 1975, the world was still feeling the effects of the Cold War, a political and ideological standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. Since the end of World War II, these two superpowers had been engaged in a struggle for global influence, each seeking to spread its ideology and expand its sphere of influence around the world. In Europe, the Cold War was most visible through the division of the continent into 2 opposing blocs. The Western countries, led by the United States, and the Eastern countries, dominated by the Soviet Union. The ongoing arms race between the two sides and the threat of nuclear war cast a long shadow over the world. The Cold War played out in a series of proxy conflicts, with the United States and Soviet Union backing opposing sides in many regional wars. A few of the largest proxy wars took place in Vietnam, Korea, Israel, Afghanistan, Nicaragua, Chile, Cuba, the Congo and Angola. The Cold War was truly a global conflict that dominated geopolitics for decades. Against this backdrop of Cold War tensions, the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project represented a rare moment of cooperation between the United States and the Soviet Union. The mission was the result of several years of negotiations between the two sides, which had previously been reluctant to cooperate in space. The cause of this reluctance was due to concerns about sharing technology and other sensitive information. The Apollo-Soyuz Test Project had several objectives, both technical and political, that it aimed to achieve. From a technical standpoint, the mission was an opportunity to test new docking procedures and communication systems that could be used in future space missions. The joint experiments conducted by the American and Soviet crews focused on areas such as materials science, astrophysics, and the effects of spaceflight on the human body. The experiments were designed to yield valuable data that could be used to inform future space missions and scientific research. The mission was not without its challenges, and the teams had to work together to overcome technical issues and language barriers. However, the successful completion of the mission would be seen as a major achievement in both the history of space exploration and in the posturing of the Cold War. On July 17, 1975, the 2 spacecraft were launched into orbit. The American crew consisted of astronauts Thomas P. Stafford, Vance D. Brand, and Donald K. Slayton. The Soviet crew consisted of cosmonauts Alexei Leonov and Valery Kubasov. After several days of maneuvering and careful positioning, the 2 spacecraft were finally able to dock successfully on July 17, marking the first time that American and Soviet spacecraft had linked up in space. The moment was captured on live television, with viewers around the world watching in awe as the 2 spacecraft became one. Over the next 44 hours, the 2 crews carried out joint experiments whilst also sharing gifts, food, and even songs with one another. The docking had been a technically challenging feat, requiring precise coordination and communication. However, the success of the mission demonstrated the power of scientific collaboration and the ability of nations to work together towards a common goal, even in the midst of the Cold War. The Apollo-Soyuz Test Project was significant not just in terms of space exploration, but also in terms of US-Soviet relations and the larger political climate of the time. The mission demonstrated that even bitter rivals could work together for a common goal, and set the stage for future collaborations and cooperation between the United States and the Soviet Union. In the larger political context of the time, the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project was seen as a glimmer of hope in an otherwise tense and uncertain world. The mission was also significant in terms of its impact on the science of space exploration. The joint experiments conducted by the astronauts and cosmonauts yielded valuable data on the effects of spaceflight on the human body. The docking procedures developed during the mission have since been used in numerous space missions. Overall, the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project was a shining example of the power of scientific collaboration, and its legacy continues to inspire scientists and space enthusiasts around the world. Thank you for taking the time to learn about these gems of history. To stay up to date with future videos, please like and subscribe.